It's time for the Social Show with Viwe Kyolwana.
Social Show? Social Show.
A very warm welcome to you. My name is Viwe Kyolwana, and of course, you're listening to The Social Show. This show highlights the very best CSI initiatives and the worst, actually. Only the best CSI initiatives that we have in the country and around the world. But more than that, we also just look at the issues that we're facing, like poverty, innovation, all the things that are going to move us forward, are going to make us get to our vision and our NDP goals, which are not too far out, right? And I remember when I used to talk about this a few years ago, and I used to feel as though Vision 2030 was a bit far. It really feels like it's around the corner now. It's 2018. We are just a few years away from ending poverty, from ending, unemployment, from really just trying to regurgitate our economy and make sure that those who are previously disadvantaged do get their opportunities, and those who find themselves in spaces that unequal or dismiss who they are and do not honor their sexual origin or whatever the case may be. We hope that Vision 2030 will be, or in 2030 there will be a change. But before I get into what it is that we'll be talking about today, I'm going to get into the news.
CSI update.
With nearly 4,000 schools with pit latrines, President Cyril Ramaphosa says the launch of the Sanitation Appropriate for Education Safe initiative is the answer to the emergency. The president, together with the Basic Education Minister Angie Motshekga, kicked off their Tuesday morning with the launch of SAFE initiative, rallying leaders of businesses to pledge their support towards the eradication of pit latrines in schools. Eastern Cape, KwaZulu-Natal and Limpopo top the provinces with the highest number of pit latrines or inadequate sanitation facilities, reflecting on the tragic deaths of Michael Komampe and Lumka Mketwa, who died in 2014 and 2018 respectively while using pit toilets. The president said more needs to be done. The utterly tragic and devastating death of the children, so young and so innocent, remind us of the human consequences of service delivery delayed. In other news, internationally renowned singer and humanitarian Yvonne Chaka Chaka, aka the Princess of Africa, has been appointed the NEPAD agency's Goodwill Ambassador for TB and Nutrition. Considered a role model throughout Africa and the African continent, Yvonne Chaka Chaka has demonstrated a passion for compassion for others throughout her career. She has promoted literacy, women and children's rights, and also is the champion in the fight against malaria. She established the Princess of Africa Foundation in 2006 to complement her humanitarian work, and through this non-profit organization she has continued to advocate for various causes and mobilize resources towards projects for people in need. As Goodwill Ambassador for NEPAD agency, Machaka's public policy advocacy focus will especially be the promotion of food security and good nutrition as key response components in the fight against TB, as well as the public awareness on challenges and solutions to end TB in Africa. And lastly, in our news, government has launched South Africa's first ever research chairs on waste management aimed at transforming the sector while contributing to the country's social economic development. The new chairs, South African Research Chair in Waste and Climate and in Waste and Society, were launched in Pretoria under the South African Research Chairs Initiative. An estimated 65% of municipal organic waste and nearly 100% of commercially exploitable biomass from the agricultural and food processing sectors is still disposed of on land, and resulting in significant and potential for greenhouse gas emissions. In 2010, the waste sector was the second largest contributor to the country's total methane emissions. Yet organic waste presents a considerable opportunity as a resource, whether as compost, bioenergy, or high-value product recovery through biorefinery. And that concludes our news for today.
In this learning module, we'll share with you 4 compelling reasons why you and your organization should embrace community involvement and CSR opportunities. You demonstrate your commitment to the community, your team, and your customers. You elevate the charisma and mission of your business by association with your involvement while broadening the public's awareness to your business and your brand. You allow your team to embrace a noble cause, which will strengthen their own reasons to see your company as a preferred employer. And you'll actually open up your horizons, your own horizons, in the sharing and caring about issues that are actually important in your own community, and in doing so, elevate you as a leader with other like-minded leaders. These are the first 4 reasons that will help you decide to get you, your company, and your team involved with issues that matter to the very people that live and work in the community you call home.
Inspiring children with creative play is what we do at the LEGO Group. In 2017, we took many steps to make a difference to the world they live in. We want to enable children to have fun and socialise while being safe online. So we launched LEGO Life, a safe social network for children. We also care about our planet's future, so 100% of the energy used for making LEGO bricks is balanced by renewable energy. And thousands of LEGO volunteers reach 400,000 children globally, inspiring them to learn through play. We are proud of the positive impact we have all made, and will continue to build a better future for children and the world around them.
As I said at the top of the hour, President Cyril Ramaphosa conceded a few days, actually yesterday, that the government actually has not been doing enough or moving fast enough in the space of sanitation. He was speaking at the launch of the Sanitation Appropriate for Education, the SAFE initiative in Tshwane yesterday, and he spoke a little bit about South African pleas that have not been heard after 2 children drowned respectively in 2014 and in 2018, falling into pit toilets. Now, at first, I want you guys to have an idea of a pit toilet. If you've never heard of it, you don't know what it looks like. It's sort of a type of toilet that collects human feces in a hole in the ground. Most designs use no water, very known as pour flush. Pit latrine uses a small amount, 1 to 3 liters per flush, but usually it's just sort of a hole in the ground that has a pit, and you then will go to the toilet there. It often has a shelter, often known as the outhouse, and it generally consists of 3 major holes: the hole in the ground, a slab on the floor in the hole where you sort of sit, and also the shelter. And it hasn't been improved since, I don't know when it started actually, when this innovation came about. Over 1.77 billion people in developing countries are using these kind of toilets. About 892 million people, or about 12% of the global population, practice open defecation in 2016, mostly because they have no toilets. Places such as South Asia and Sub-Saharan Africa have the lowest access to toilets, and the Indian government has been running the Clean India mission since 2014 in order to eliminate open defecation and get people in rural areas to sort of use toilets mainly. A lot of people use the pit toilets, and I come from a space in the Eastern Cape. Well, not come from. My grandmother and my great grandmother, they stayed in the villages in the Eastern Cape, and pit toilets were nothing like new to them. That's what they use. That's what they're used to. The toilets are outside of the house. They are really unsecured. Anybody can get in. Anybody can get get in while you in there. It's a really it's a horrible space. And as I said, the SAFE initiative was launched recently, and obviously it comes at the death of 5-year-old Lumgam Ketwa, who drowned after she fell into a pit latrine at Luna Junior Primary School in the Eastern Cape in March this year. And in 2014, Michael Komape, also 5 years old, drowned in a pit toilet in Limpopo. And I know that the families have gone to court to claim damages and compel the government to provide decent sanitation. The Limpopo High Court, however, dismissed their case in April, but they have since been granted leave to appeal. The matter is still pending. It really scares me that, there's still toilets in different schools that can't flush, that there's schools that the Department of Education kind of knows about that don't have flushing or water. They don't have normal toilets. There are still over 4,000 schools across the country that have pit toilets, and a further 3,000 schools without proper sanitation, or toilets that have been sort of demolished. And I know the president did say that there's been significant backlog in making sure that the public school system, more importantly the public school system, but even just environments and spaces and where people live, have access to decent sanitation. And I guess today my question to you is, how many times do you think about people who don't have the necessary sanitation, the necessary spaces to go to the toilet? How often do you take for granted the fact that you just go to a toilet in your local mall, let alone your own house, let alone your working area, where you can sort of do whatever you need to do without thinking about it? Can you even imagine a life where you had to use a pit toilet to go and do your business? I can't, and I'm a bit old. I'm 26 years old, and it's devastating for me to even think about that, because I can't imagine the kind of hygiene that goes on in a pit toilet, if there is any at all. And it's really scary that we've had so many kids die because there hasn't been a strong enough willpower to really make sure that the Department of Education does its part within sanitation in schools. You know, it's really scary for me. And I wonder how many of you have used your platforms, have used your initiatives, have used your tactics to really tackle that space, because I do think that toilets play a big role in how kids understand and work in a school environment. They also speak to dignity. They speak to understanding yourself and understanding that you do deserve a hygienic space to relieve yourself, especially if you're a child. So it's very, very important that we start looking at that, because it's actually a really, really scary way, first of all, not only to die, but it's a scary truth to know that kids are being open to those kind of toilets. It's something that doesn't make sense to me. Africa is a continent of astonishing potential, but if it is to build a future citizens deserve, we have to see increased effort to remove the barriers that are holding it back. None is greater than poor sanitation, my people. A shadow hanging over the lives of people and prospects of hundreds of millions of people around the continent and across the world. Nearly 1 billion people globally are forced to sort of go to the toilet in the open. As many again have to live with inadequate sanitation. Both lead to not only the contamination of water and food, but also the spread of disease. The costs are both human and economic, and are huge, and this is why it's so disappointing that the Millennium Development Goal on sanitation was one of the furthest things from being achieved. I think we've done a lot in terms of education. There's a lot that still needs to be done, but I think sanitation is taking a little bit slow. It's a little bit slower. I know a lot of companies have come to the forefront. Domestos, Lifebuoy, a lot of them have been trying to really rework toilets and make sure that they're okay, but the impact of has been really disappointing in my opinion. It's still really one of the top 10 causes of death worldwide. Unsafe water, poor sanitation, diarrhea diseases that come from that space. Those are the things that are killing our people, and these are the things that could be prevented. But the damage of I think for sanitation, or the lack of sanitation, goes far beyond just health. The lack of toilets puts the personal safety of girls and women at risk. It's one of the major reasons why so many girls drop out of school, robbing them from an education and their communities of their talents. It's not just a human tragedy, but a huge economic burden on already hard-pressed countries. New research, however, prepared by the Oxford Economics, has put the annual cost of poor sanitation for low and middle income countries at about 200 billion. These cumulative costs include those from early loss of life, providing healthcare, and impact of sort of productivity of sickness, the impact on productivity of the sickness. It is the largest countries like India that research shows which the shoulder that sort of shoulder the highest national cost burden. But if you look at these costs nation by nation as a share of the GDP to work out their impact on the society, then countries from sub-Saharan Africa they often make up half of the top 10. In Niger, post-sanitation costs about 2.7 of the GDP, and the figure is nearly 1% across the continent as a whole. Africa simply cannot afford this loss. Even more worrying, I think, is that the research shows that the annual costs for Africa have risen by 24% in the last 5 years and now stand at over 19 billion. It also underlines the terrible toll poor sanitation is taking across the continent by revealing the premature deaths that account of almost 75% of these costs in Africa compared to just 55% of them globally. And this is why I think sanitation and hygiene must again figure high on the agenda these next few years. As these Japanese and African heads of state gather in Nairobi for these conferences, like the Tokyo International Conference on African Development, like all these other conferences that we're coming together to speak about the issues that our continents are going through. I really definitely think that we need to make sure that sanitation and poor sanitation is at the head of them. It's a complex sort of challenge. And it's very difficult to think about it for me personally. But I definitely think that in developing countries, more needs to be done. I know that the infrastructure is too costly. A lot of people have said that. They've said that water is very hard to find in a lot of different places in our continent. And it's becoming more scarcer and scarcer because of climate change. But it's very important that our corporate community comes together as well and finds innovative ways to help kids in rural spaces, to make sure that they at least have the privilege of just good sanitation. I'm going to leave it at that. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, it's going to be things to remember.
There is no doubt that quality education can help reduce poverty, foster economic prosperity, improve health and well-being. It can help a person to understand this world better or build a base for the future. It's clear, it's simple, education is important. However, today there are places around the world where 14 students share just one book. Girls simply drop out because there are no toilets in schools. Today, 58 million children are denied the basic right to education. Those children did not even have a choice, but you do.
Whether you're an athlete or just going about your day-to-day business, use TurboFreeze on the go for any pain relief or inflammation. It's the #1 pain relief formula. To find out more, log on to our website www.turbofreeze.co.za.
You're listening to brandlive.co.za.
You're back on the social show, and it's definitely my favorite part of the show where I sort of leave you with something to remember. I've been speaking about sanitation throughout the course of today's show. I think it's still something that is top of our heads, top of the agenda, especially because of what the government just launched the other day. I think it's also important that we start speaking a little bit more about how we can make sure that the smartest minds go into solving these problems, So I'm going to play the tape, and then hopefully it's going to stick in your head, and we'll talk about it after.
In Uganda, one of the poorest countries in the world, many people are in desperate need of improved sanitation. About 5.5 million households need to rely on pit latrines as their bathrooms. If untreated, pit latrines can become a breeding ground for mosquitoes, germs, and viruses, which contaminate the environment and spread diseases such as malaria and diarrhea. Under a 3-year project known as Sanitation for Africa, Lanza Water Treatment has teamed up with the NGO Clean Habitat Uganda to provide our HDH scientific sanitizer tablets for use in pit latrines. Last week, Lanza visited several schools and communities in Uganda to inform the people about the benefits of our pit latrine sanitizer tablets. Project leader Ruan Reinecke from Lanza provides continuous guidance and support on the appropriate application of these sanitizers. Lanza held a community event in Kabazanda, Uganda, to further educate the community on sanitation and the benefits of our pit latrine sanitizer tablets. The event day was a fun-filled celebration with lots of activities, including educational presentations, dance performances, music, and a soccer game.
We are so grateful as Lanza to be here helping you. Webale.
Innovation and partnership are absolutely critical when tackling an issue as big as poor sanitation. We need more innovation in technology and delivery so we find new, affordable and sustainable ways of bringing sanitation to those at the bottom of the pyramid. And that's exactly what that clip was about seeing how partnerships can come to when private and public partnerships happen. You can see a little bit more of movement in that space. There are exciting developments going on in Africa and around the world to provide sanitation to communities who need the most, and by stepping up our collective efforts we will remove a huge barrier to a better future for this continent. And that concludes our show for today. It's been a challenging Thursday for me. I'm still under the weather, as you can hear my voice. But that doesn't stop us. We will not stop. This is the Social Show, and we'll be back again, same time, same place, on Brand Live.
You're listening to brandlive.co.za.